Welcome back to Sunday Opinion, where today we're taking a look at the A-level results and we're talking about things of education in general. Our studio guests are Cregeen, who's the Minister for Education, Sport and Leisure, Gail Corrin, who's Higher Education Manager at the University College here, Joel Smith, who's the School Improvement Advisor, Pippa Edmunds, who looks after the management degrees at the college. Now, we've been talking about the courses and people taking courses and so on, but there's one thing that from running a business myself and seeing people sometimes coming in, whether they're coming in just looking for a job or whether they're going to be doing something with us, and they have a qualification in, let's say, graphic design, which seems to be an awful lot of them out there who say they're graphic designers, I might add. And when they actually get down to doing the job, they've got it all in theory, but in practice can't do it. I mean, how do you get that real link between, I know you say you got them at practice but real link. A good example I mean is that we see people coming in with wonderful designs that are almost unprintable, or posters you can't read, or there's the whole series of the practicality is missing. How do you go about it, bringing that into it?
Well, I think it's important to recognise that our schools are increasingly keen to invite in people from all sorts of different employment sectors to give pupils experience of the job itself. Increasingly, the people we work with in the employment sectors on the Isle of Man, yes, they want pupils who've got the grades, but they also want pupils who can hold a conversation, who can project manage, yes, their own lives and project manage short parts of a role. We have a lot of great work experience happening. We have, as Pippa and Gail said, Junior Achievement, which is sponsored by the department and helps young people form their own businesses in school, work with each other. And importantly, as Gail mentioned before, we increasingly now have moved away from teaching pupils how to pass exams, as you said, Roger, to teaching them how to learn, to build more powerful learners and to be able to learn on the job quickly and use their initiative and have transferable skills across a particular industry or a part of their lives. That will always be an aspiration. You will never get a perfect pupil who can transfer their skills into any part of any human endeavour, but that's what we work towards, and it's an ever-receding horizon. I mean, you mentioned before about things getting easier, pupils getting brighter. I think we'll always be moving towards that ever-receding horizon, and that's what challenges us in education to make things better for our young people.
Well, of course, things are on the move. When I first started doing this, there was an engineer the other side of a panel, and as you can see here today, we have a studio full of computers, just me.
And it's working now.
It is working now.
Well, I think, Roger, that what we've got is with the, like, if I give you the engineering now, we work with the engineering sector to design the courses to what they want. Now, as major employers on the Isles, they know what they require. But I suppose some of the smaller engineering companies will say it's not exactly what they need. And that's the difficulty you've got, is to try and cover the whole spectrum. You can give them that sort of base area where they can go across. But the individual, if it goes down to a different type of machine, yes, it will take a bit of extra training. But we hope that by having business in there, they've got sort of a good grounding to go out to the industry.
What we hear from industry is the individual tasks that their employees are performing are so technical and so varied that we as educators can't teach them those technical tasks, but it comes back to the mindset. And if we encourage our young people to develop a mindset where their training is their responsibility, if they see a need for something, they go and find the training, then we've succeeded. Because the employers are happy with that. They can do the highly intricate technical stuff so long as the young people want to learn.
Well, just to illustrate the point, our family business is in the printing business, and we obviously need people to various functions from time to time. And the one thing we find is we get particularly people in their 30s and 20s, late 30s, 40s, early 40s, that bracket, they're actually technically very clever. But there's things like spelling, which is essential in our business. It's a disaster. I mean, what happened there? There's something missed out. Do you see that as part of your responsibility as well?
That I might leave that one to Joel, because that is a conundrum, because you don't want to stifle the creativity. And if focusing on somebody's spelling stifles their creativity,
Our customers will not like it if you spell him misspelling.
well, no, and we don't either. So that's a real catch-22.
Yeah,
That one.
like I said before, our education is still very much bound up in the traditional abilities, mathematical ability, literacy, numeracy, scientific knowledge. That's still very much there, and that's not going away. Our exams have a component which assesses spelling, punctuation and grammar. So pupils do need a strong grounding in those skills. But as I said before, they are just one set of skills as part of a host of many different things that we look to bring forward in education. A lot of people require attention to detail in their roles.
Mm-hmm.
And what's good nowadays is if you haven't quite managed to achieve a certain level in English or maths, we've got those opportunities within adult learning to secure that later on in life. So I don't think that your die is cast at any part of your young life anymore like it used to be at 11 or 16 or 18. People have got opportunities wherever they are in their lives and their careers, and we're here to help.
Well, there's been an automatic assumption for many years that a good A-level grades will automatically lead to a university degree, and more people seem to be going to university. Why is this?
Well, when was it? 97, when Tony Blair declared that 50% of people in the I know it was the UK, not the Isle of Man, but the having a degree was kind of set as a standard of being prepared for the knowledge economy was the basis of that. And I think what we all knew, but is evident, that a degree is one way to develop your higher learning and to develop your employment skills, etc.
So a degree is not always necessary to further a career then?
Yeah, it's one method, and I think you'll talk to a lot of employers who will tell all sorts of stories about they're after good people. Now, if that person, that capable, competent person, has come about through an apprenticeship, through life experience, through a more vocationally based course, what we mustn't do is always assume that a degree, is automatically communicates all those qualities. There are many ways now to professionally and personally develop yourself through education.
Well, very often a degree, I would suggest, won't provide the qualifications for some type of work. It may show that you've got the ability to learn, but not necessarily qualifications.
Yes.
Back to my daughter again for a minute. When she got her degree, I still remember the day she got it. She said to me, "Well, Dad, I've got my degree, now I have to learn how to do a job."
Yeah.
And like we said, just because you've been to university is not the level of success. We have accountancy companies on the island who will go to the schools and they look for people in their A levels to go and work in accountancy companies, and then they will put them through training. So it's not just a case that they're recognising that on-the-job training has its part to play as well. So I think we've, we still have areas to improve, and we would like to see more businesses engage with us. There's always, more chance for people to engage with us, to give us the knowledge what they're requiring, but we can't cover everything because we have limits as well.
Well, funny if you talk there about better time spent acquiring skills. I keep talking about my family today, but my granddaughter didn't want university after doing her A-levels, and she's done exactly as you say, Graham. She's training as an accountant.
Yeah.
On the job.
Yes.
Yeah, indeed. A lot of our accountancy firms here, we've got some of the big five on the island, luckily. They seek to snap up young people at 18 rather than waiting until 21 or 22.
Yeah.
And they put them through a lot of on-the-job training, maybe even through qualifications, in order to secure those employees for their company from a younger age. And we're seeing that increasingly in the IT sector as well, and in microgaming and in the growth industries on the Isle of Man. So yeah, the picture is changing. About 70% of our pupils will still seek to go to university to do an undergraduate course, but the way in which they do that and when they do that and how long they do that for is changing.
So when you talk about doing other types of work, we talked earlier on, I heard you talking recently, Graham, about apprenticeships, the way of linking work and study together. Now, apprenticeships, coming back to the printing industry, for instance, the chap worked for 5 years very often closely with another one or two people. And at the end of that 5 years, he was deemed to be qualified. What happens today with apprenticeships? Because I would have thought just a letter from the union is not going to carry you which you used to get, is not going to carry you very far now.
Well, I think there's different areas, because you'll get some people who think that they'll just go into an employment and that will see them through their career. You can go from job to job. There'll be other people who think, well, if I want to go further, I need a piece of paper so that when I go to my next employer, I've got something to prove what I've been able to do. And we've got to sort of accommodate both. And I think the issue that you're saying is that it may be just as well if you looked at somebody as an apprentice to your place so they can get used to your machine specifically. I think you've got the WIBIS course as well, which is work-based learning.
Work-based learning, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. We've been running a couple of consultations in the last few months. This is looking at the higher education offer that we have here on the island. And we consulted with employers, we've consulted with educationalists, and we've also consulted with sixth formers. And I think the strong message for us in terms of what we offer on the island and how we offer it is absolutely that flexibility and agility to respond to the many different versions there are of learning, of becoming employable, of developing a career. For example, our sixth formers told us very clearly that they quite like sandwich courses. So you might do a year of study and then take a whole year out and go in the workplace, apply it, learn from it, jiggle it around, and then you're actually in a much stronger position to come back for the second and third year for your degree, perhaps to absorb that knowledge in a different way because you've had that year out. So I think the challenge for us, and it is a challenge because of the scale issues. We're 80,000 people. There's only so much we can do. We're like a small sort of British town in terms of volume. But to make sure our offer is flexible and responsive and so that almost students can mix the amount of work-based learning, academic learning, and we can make it available in the sort of packages that work for that person and work for that industry.
Well, I can understand how, of course, student loans, university grants, the various debate that there is on those are or are not funded. But if somebody decides to be an apprentice and he needs funding, how does that happen? Are the funds available?
Yes, there is. That part's now just come to our department. So the employment skills has come from Department for Enterprise over to Department of Education, Sport and Culture. So we're actually covering all those areas now. So we do fund apprenticeships. So it is a work
to the student or whoever it is, or to the company.
It's actually both, isn't it?
Yes,
because previously it was to the company, and then it went to the students. So there's a mix of it.
Yeah. So Roger, we need to be quite careful, I think, with the word apprenticeship because we already at UCM offer apprenticeships, and there are other bodies on the island that offer apprenticeships as well. But what that word means is different depending on who hears it. So we have apprenticeships in the construction industry. And in others. It's not my area, so I can't say exactly. But that's one form of apprenticeship, and something that we're also looking at then is a higher level, managerial level apprenticeship, to try to bring in this work readiness as well. And so the apprenticeships being within the Department of Education is a new thing. And we're just very much trying to get to grips with what that word means. And yes, it's a fantastic opportunity.
Well, it's the student's own personal preferences, of course, and interests. And of course, if you're interested in something, you could learn it a lot easier in that case. But does the long-term value to the Isle of Man economy come into consideration when subjects are on offer from the schools or on the colleges?
We take a lot of advice and guidance from all sorts of different industries, from the Chamber of Commerce. But we have to always balance that with what's right for young people. We can't simply teach a certain computer course because one IT company says that's the right thing to do. We're obviously listen to the employment sector, but we're very much, our core purpose is the young person, the learner, and we have to do what's right for them and their own future, wherever that might be, whether that's on island or further afield. So it's an ongoing conversation, and it's balancing the needs of the Isle of Man with the needs of young people, with the needs of the community, and we have to try and get that right. And as the Minister said before, we're constantly in dialogue with all sorts of different businesses on the Isle of Man to ensure that we are listening and that young people are prepared to enter those sectors, and if possible, try and retain as many young people on the island, or get them back once they have graduated, or entice them back and incentivise the return to the Isle of Man. I myself spent some time growing up here, went through my career in England, but was incentivized to return with a young family, and I think that's increasingly what the government's looking. That's the kind of demographic.
Only last year, Graham, the government wanted to find out why so many young people were shunning the Isle of Man after they graduated.
I think shunning was a hard word.
Yes.
that was your words, not mine.
I think shunning is a hard word. What it was, we were trying to find out how many people came back and how many people stayed away. And we were surprised by the number of actually people who came back. It was about 50% were coming back.
Or really wanted to, and when the right career opportunity came up, they would come back. So either were coming back or intended to come back, which is higher than we expected.
Yeah. And I think the issue that we have is that our pot of money is only so big. That that a number of years ago they changed the grade boundaries of what you required, how many points you needed to get to go to university. Because one of the things is that, is it fair for young people if you send them away and they haven't got the grades, and we're spending that sort of money for students to go to university, and then they fail their first year? Because are we then restricting other people who may wish to go, who may be able to take that advantage? And it's a very difficult decision to make, is to say, well, unfortunately we can't fund this course, and unfortunately this person doesn't quite get these points. And I can understand the disappointment from that young person whose dream it may be to go to university, but you're in that position where there's a possibility that you might have to reclaim that money from them in the future if they don't actually succeed it. And our student loans are approved by Tynwald, and we have that pot of money, and that's the guidance that we have for it.
Okay,
And
well,
can I say, yeah,
So
sorry,
worthwhile saying, I mean, the topic of funding is incredibly controversial, and there'll be lots of people who don't think it's right or it's enough or whatever. But I have to say, having researched around the world, the Isle of Man government remains the most generous jurisdiction in terms of supporting young people to study at a higher level, which is
you talk about people
mustn't be
coming.
forgotten in the concerns around,
Roger, can I
topic.
just come in on something there that the Minister said as well? We have a point system, so each A-level grade or each BTEC grade has a point, and in the UK that turns into UCAS, and that gets them into the course they want to go into. The government currently will fund students if they get more than 80 UCAS points. And my degree requires 96 UCAS points. If you go to the University of Chester, it's 112 for the same degree. We really, really struggle because we want to offer students places, but I have seen students who have come onto the course with less than 96 points who have then struggled. And whilst the Minister was looking at it from one point of view of there may be stopping somebody else getting that position, I look at it from the point of view as I don't want to put a young person through that, because we watch them lose their confidence, we watch them lose a year of their lives, and if they were better off doing something else, it's better that they do the other thing. And so it is a really difficult decision, because we don't want to stop them, but we also don't want to put them in that horrendous place.
Well,